Hey everybody, so today I put it out there that I wanted to make like a more relaxed kind of video, just kind of sit with you and whatever. And I still get a lot of questions about living in Philly and Philly life. And in my 5 Fact Friday from last week, I kind of talked about um, how to like stay safe in Philadelphia and things like that, and how I learned from experience, which was kind of my like nice way of saying like bad things have happened. And I kind of mentioned how I had to file a police report for an incident that happened on the subway. And a couple people asked me like, "Well, what happened?" And there's one incident that I never reported to the police, and I'm gonna title this video something that will keep people from clicking on it if there is like a trigger for them. But my trigger warning is I was like touched at the grocery store. So I'm saying that at the beginning, but I mean, it happened to me, and for a long time it was really upsetting to me, and now I can kind of talk about it and not laugh about it, but I'm at a point where I'm okay talking about it. So I'm going to share my experience with everybody and kind of what I learned. And if anyone wants to share their experiences with me, feel free. It was probably like 2 years ago, and I was still living in West Philly. And I remember it must have been like March or May. I mean, March, April, or May, because the weather was changing and it was finally time for me to get back into my outfits. And I swear my uniform, like what I always wore every day, was always like a mini skirt with like a shirt tucked in. Like that was my uniform. Like I didn't leave the house in another outfit. So the weather was nice and I had to run to the grocery store, and I remember just like being so happy like that the sun was still out, and it was like 6 o'clock, and I was so excited. And I walked over to the grocery store. And if you're a tattooed person, you may know like the first couple of days of the new season when it's like your tattoos are out and you might be getting a little more attention than you do the rest of the year. And those days kind of chill out as the season progresses, but the first couple days of like tats out usually gets some unwarranted attention. So I walked to my grocery store, and it's a corner grocery store. It's not like a huge one. It probably has a small parking lot, 4 aisles at the most. So I'm cutting across the parking lot, and there's a couple guys out front, and there's this older man, probably like 50s, 53, kind of gray hair, tank top aesthetic, like with the belly, like you might be able to picture him. Necklace, gold necklaces. And he goes, "Hey, how are you, miss?" Hi. You know. And, do I normally talk to strangers? Yes and no. I mean, I wasn't gonna stop and talk to him, but he directly said something to me. So I was like, "Hi," whatever. I was really feeling the vibe of not him, but the summer coming, the outfit, the tattoos. I had my own reusable grocery bag. I felt great. So I walk into the grocery store, and it's the kind of grocery store where you can just put stuff in your own bag, and then when you walk to the front, you pay. Very trusting. So I'm walking up and down the aisles, and I notice our parking lot guy come in, but I don't really care. He's older, he's hungry, and why else would he be there? So I'm walking up and down the aisles, and he gets kind of closer to me, and it's not something I really care about at first. Like it doesn't really cross my mind, and then there's a divide in the aisles where, you know, they have the like end displays for like spring, summer, whatever is on sale, end caps. If you've ever worked in retail, they're called end caps. So I'm walking through, and there's 2 end caps, and the guy from the parking lot rushes, and as I'm walking like past the end cap, he rushes and pushes himself up against me and reaches under my skirt. And all at once I tell myself like it was an accident, and I keep walking because I figure like that's just where his hand maybe was. So I grab a couple more things, but I'm kind of panicked, and you know, I feel a little weird. I wasn't wearing tights or anything. So it's the final aisle, like the bread aisle. I just need like one more thing. And he comes up from behind me again, does the same thing, but this time grabs my hips and pulls me into him. So I throw my elbows back, and he moves back and walks away. And I tell myself again, like, it was an accident, it was an accident. And then I see him come back for the 3rd time. So I put all my stuff down and I leave. And I see him come out into the parking lot. So I rush home, and I open my front door, and my roommate's waiting there for me. And she's like, what happened? And I break down. I start crying. I can't hold my composure. I know it was on purpose. And I tell her, like, he reached up my skirt. He pulled me into him, and I felt him. I felt him do it. So she was, we had to call the police. We had to file a police report, all of this. But, you know, in the news, you hear about stuff like this all the time, and nothing ever comes of it. So I told her, don't bother. It's just another pervert. Don't bother. So I kind of work myself really up, and I'm crying and crying. And you ever cry so much that you like fall asleep? And at my house, I didn't really spend much time in the living room either. It was the first time I had ever fallen asleep on the sofa. So later she wakes me up. She goes, hey, you know, I know you didn't want me to, but I went back to the supermarket and I reported an incident. And I gave them your name, and I gave them my phone number, and they're gonna call me. And, you know, I wasn't upset at her, but I was a little upset that it wasn't over, you know? So the very next day, the manager calls from the supermarket, and she's female. And she goes, hey, I reviewed the footage, and it's very obvious what happened. The camera pointed right at it, and, you know, what your roommate said is true. He reached up there, and he grabbed you, and he groped you. She said, you can have this footage, you can come here and pick it up, and we can file a police report together. But she said, you know, she didn't recognize him, and he didn't buy anything. So he was just waiting in the parking lot to do that to you. I thanked her, and I thanked her for, like, looking through the footage. I know that it's complicated, but, I never did file a police report, and it kind of has to do with, like, I don't know, I didn't think anything would come of it, and he looked like 1,000 other people, but it did take me a really long time to leave the house again, go grocery shopping by myself, and I felt really ashamed, and I don't think I've ever worn miniskirts with a shirt tucked in ever again. And I mean, I'm older now, even if it was only 2 years ago. Sometimes maybe I tell myself like, oh, you don't dress that way anymore because you're 25. But I know that that guy like took something from me, and it's not just Philadelphia, it could happen anywhere. So if you were thinking about moving here, don't think that like you're gonna go to the grocery store and some guy's gonna press himself against you. But I think that everyone should be aware, and there are so many things I wish I did instead. I wish I would have screamed. I wish I would have hit him, punched him in his face. And it's easy for me to say that stuff now, but as it happened, I told myself, like, this is an accident. This isn't on purpose. This isn't supposed to happen. This isn't really happening on purpose. But it was. And I think being embarrassed and, like, being shy and feeling weird are the reasons I didn't react. And now I know what to look for, and now people can't even bump into me without me being alert. But unfortunately, it had to happen to me for me to learn that lesson. And I've taken self-defense classes, I've taken women's self-defense, I took karate for like 6 years, but I wasn't ready because I didn't think it was real. I remember I couldn't tell John for a long time, probably like a week, and then even then I felt really bad telling him because I didn't want to upset him, but at the same time I didn't want to feel dirty, and I didn't want to feel like a stranger had touched me without my permission. And I know he didn't mean to tell me, like, why didn't you do this? I know in his heart he meant it with goodness, as if to be like, well, next time. But it's hard to think, well, next time. Recently, this year, something similar happened to me, where I was walking to the train and this kid came up behind me and grabbed my butt. But when I turned around, he was a kid. He was, 15, and he was by himself. And I had that time to react, like, am I gonna hit him? Am I gonna scream? Or am I gonna say, hey, this is a 15-year-old kid, and he's obviously troubled if he's grabbing a stranger. So, I said, fuck you. But after that, John wanted to get me pepper spray, and there's the whole thing where if I'm holding pepper spray, it means I'm waiting for something to happen. And in Philadelphia, and I don't know if it's the same for everywhere else, but in Philadelphia you can't conceal pepper spray. You have to keep it, like on your keychain, on your purse, on your lanyard, or else it's considered a concealed weapon, and it's illegal. And half of me is like, if they see the pepper spray, it's a deterrent and they won't bother you. But then I'm just like, I feel like I'm marked, that I'm showing everybody that I'm vulnerable, that I'm afraid that something has happened to me, or I have something valuable if I'm protecting something. I mean, I do keep pepper spray with me now because he did buy it for me, but I keep it in my bag. I don't know. It's not something I'm happy I have it, but it's not something that I think about having because I just always feel like I don't want to wait. I don't want to be thinking about when it's going to happen again. And the time on the SEPTA train when I had to call the detective, so it was a couple days before Thanksgiving. So the trains were kind of on a holiday schedule. There weren't a lot of people on the trains. A lot of people go home for Thanksgiving. So the city was kind of sparse with people. And I was going out to South Philly, and I was on the Orange Line, and it was probably like 2 more stops until my stop. So I'm waiting, and I'm kind of like looking out the window, like looking at all the graffiti and stuff in the train tunnels, and I don't really notice, and I'm not really like fully aware of my surroundings. And I look over, and there's a guy watching me, and he's normal. He's like, he doesn't really look sketchy or feel sketchy. He wasn't like giving me any weird vibes. He looked like he just got off of work. He looked clean and regular, and when I looked at him, he was, his pants were open, and he was showing me, like, his stuff, and he was holding it, and I couldn't believe it, and I looked around, and it was just me and him on the train, and I didn't know what to do. I was so scared immediately, and just so taken back, I couldn't believe it. Because, you know, you go on the train with other passengers, and you check your phone, and you read the newspaper, and you look out the window, and you don't really expect to ride the train looking both ways all the time. And I've seen crazy people on the train do really weird stuff, and I've seen all of that stuff on the train. It doesn't really bother me, but I didn't expect it from this guy, so I didn't, my awareness wasn't up. But he looked right at me, and he was, he started to do his thing, and I got up and I got off at the very next stop. And when I called my grandma, she was like, I would have yanked that thing right off of him. I was like, oh. She was like, you need to call the police. Like, you have to call the police right now. And it's not something I normally do. So I placed a complaint online with, like, their complaint department, and they called me back right away and was like, obviously this is a legal thing, this isn't a complaint, like, this is something you need to file a police report for. So when the detective called me back to have the interview with me, you know, she asked me a ton of questions, and they were, like, kind of embarrassing, but she was really nice, and I was glad that a woman called me, and she gave me some tips about next time, and she told me where to sit and stand on the platform. She told me that the seats closest to the door always have a camera, and where I was sitting and where the man was sitting, she couldn't find our footage, so there was no way to identify him because we were sitting out of the range of the camera. So when you're on the platform waiting for your train, you can wait in certain areas where you can look up and see the camera. And she gave me advice like, don't stand in the same spot on the platform every night, change up your route, change up the times, you know, don't always go the same way, like 11:25 every night on the dot. I stand here on the platform, I go in this train car, I sit in this seat. She said, change your routine, change it up, go to the store on your way home, like, don't always go the same route every single night, because she says you don't know who gets used to your routine, who follows you, who you ride with, and you don't know what kind of person they are. Basically saying, like, if you ride the train with the same weirdo for 6 months, on the first day of the 7th month, they might snap and kill you. And you don't know. You really don't. And it's upsetting, and like I said before, like, you don't want to have to think about that stuff, but the second you don't is when it happens. Like, you know, if I would have just turned away and pretended like I didn't see it, maybe he would have hit me in the head or something, and no one would have known because we weren't on camera. So those are some of the things that, like, really stick out in my mind. I mean, something kind of crazy happens to me all the time, and like I've said in some of my other videos, like, people see me on the street and they see my tattoos, or they used to see my piercings, and they thought that I was like a sex person and, like, into all those things and, like, had all these kinks, and people feel invited to, like, touch my body and stuff like that, or ask me questions that aren't okay, and I don't want to say I'm used to it, because every single time it happens, I'm not ready. Every single time I call John or I call somebody, and there was a guy at work one time who, it was right around Christmas, like a couple days after Christmas. I thought he was like a dad. He had like his new like Columbia jacket on, which, like, in my mind, like, you make up little things for customers and you're like, oh, he got that for Christmas like 2 days ago. That's a nice jacket. He waved me down, miss, you're out of spoons. And I kind of looked over at, like, our little service area, and we had a lot of forks, we had a lot of knives, absolutely no spoons. And I was kind of like, it's weird. So I was like, oh, are you interested in a straw? And he said, no, I want a spoon. They're up there. They're all the way up there. And he's like pointing up at the shelf. And I kind of look and I can't reach it. So, you know, it's around Christmas. You gotta be nice to everybody. Can't be like, use a fork. So I pull the ladder. I take the ladder up. And I walk up the ladder and I get the spoons. I get a couple of them. And I walk down. And I hand him the spoon and he grabs my wrist. And he goes, I knew I'd get to see those legs. He tricked me into going up the ladder so he could look up my dress. And I didn't expect it. You never expect it from people who seem regular. He ordered 2 drinks. I figured one was for his wife, one was for his child, you know. But that may have just been his game, so I would have thought that he wasn't a predator, but he was, and there was nothing I could do. I was at work. I just started sobbing, and, you know, when you work in service, predators can come and prey on you because they know that you can't say no, that you have to appease them, that you have to, police siren, and that you can't curse them out, you can't get violent, you can't pepper spray them. You're at work, and you just kind of have to wipe your tears off and take the next order. And it sucks, and it wasn't the first time it happened to me at work. It's just something that happens a lot, and me, like, I'm still trying to figure out how I deal with it and how I exist in this world. And it's great that I have feminism for me, and it's great that I have a support system. You call your parents on the phone and they say, why didn't you do something? Why didn't you hit him? Why didn't you kick him in the dick? Like, because I couldn't. I was scared. I didn't think it was real. I didn't think it was me. It was an out-of-body experience. Let me know how you deal with street harassment, and if you, I don't want to say can relate to this video because I don't want this for anybody else, but it's not about just Philadelphia. It can happen anywhere, and I wish to all of you awareness. Be aware of your surroundings, your situation all the time. You can talk to me if your parents give you the same thing as they give me, and I'll be there for you, and we can all be there for each other. Look out for other women, look out for everybody, because it could happen to anyone at all. It's not just women. And take care of people, look out for people, and if you see somebody who's being harassed, step in. And even if you're scared, you don't know how many times, like, the other day, I snapped it. I was waiting on the train platform, and this guy wouldn't leave me alone. You know, he was like, oh, you must love getting tattooed. You like how it feels? And he had a sweatshirt on, and he had pants on, and it was 95 degrees, and we were underground with no fan, and he wouldn't leave me alone. He wouldn't leave me alone. You know, I'm trying to look around. I don't want to pull out my phone if that's what he's trying to egg me on to do. And he wouldn't stop, and he was checking me out, and he was looking at me. And this kid who, he didn't say anything at all. He saw what was happening, and he stood next to me. And the guy left. And it's little things like that, like, he just stood next to me and made sure I was okay, because he could tell that something bad was about to happen. And I took a picture of him, because he could have saved my life. And be him, be that guy. If you see something, like, help. If you hear a girl, like, help. If you see somebody, like, just help somebody out in need. And reach out, let me know, like this video, subscribe, and just keep aware, keep your mind, be aware of your surroundings. It's not just cities, it's It's the suburbs, it's rural, it's everywhere. Just like be aware, take care of your friends, and look out for other people. And yeah, thanks for watching. I wanted this to be a chill, relaxed video, but it's a hard subject to talk about, but I do think it has to be spoken about. So yeah, that is my talk on what I tried to evade in my other video. But thanks for watching. Thanks for staying tuned. Thanks for keeping the dialogue going. I love you guys. Thank you so much for the support. 20,000 subscribers. I love every single one of you. Let me know. And if you're too scared to comment, you can always hit me up on Snapchat. And bye.